When you see the stock ticker GS, it's way more than just some numbers on a screen. It's actually a 150-year saga of power, crisis, and reinvention on Wall Street. Today, we're going to unpack the incredible story behind Goldman Sachs.
So you might be asking, how can a single stock really tell 150 years of history? Well, it's because GS isn't just a financial asset. You can think of it as a historical artifact. Its journey literally mirrors the evolution of the entire global economy, and we're about to see exactly how.
When you boil it all down, the journey of Goldman Sachs is really a story about three big ideas: resilience, especially when facing total collapse, constant reinvention to stay on top, and of course, the immense power that comes with being at the very center of global finance. It's a real Titan's journey.
To really get why Goldman is so important, you've got to understand that its stock is considered a bellwether. So what does that mean? Basically, its performance is seen as a huge indicator for the health of the entire investment banking world, and sometimes even the whole economy. When GS is doing well, it's usually a sign of confidence all around.
But it definitely didn't start out as this global titan, not even close. The whole story actually begins with a single immigrant entrepreneur in New York City right after the Civil War.
The firm's early growth was just explosive. It all kicked off in 1869 with Marcus Goldman, who was a solo operator dealing in what's called commercial paper. Think of them as short-term IOUs for merchants. Then, in the 1880s, the family connection with Samuel Sachs created that legendary partnership. But the real game changer, that was the 1906 Sears IPO. This wasn't just another deal. It was the move that shot them from a small firm into a major player in investment banking.
Of course, no 150-year history is a smooth ride. And for a financial firm, the biggest tests always come in the form of market crashes, the kind that threaten to wipe you off the map entirely.
And this is where a really clear pattern emerges. During the Great Depression, a speculative venture almost took them down completely. So what was their survival strategy? They went back to basics, conservative banking. Now fast forward 80 years to the 2008 crisis, and the threat felt eerily similar. The tactics were different for sure. They became a bank holding company and got a crucial lifeline from Warren Buffett, but the core challenge was exactly the same: survive while everyone around you is collapsing.
So the crucial point here is this: surviving those near-death experiences was not just luck. It literally forged a culture of intense discipline and really robust risk management that became the firm's core DNA. It's a trait that would define them for the next century. This culture of survival really set the stage for the firm's next giant leap. By the late 1990s, Goldman was facing a totally new challenge: the limits of its own private structure. And that led to the single biggest transformation in its modern history.
And that transformation was its IPO, or initial public offering. For anyone who's not totally sure, this is just the moment a private company sells its shares to the public for the very first time, becoming a publicly traded company. For Goldman, this was a massive, massive shift.
So why do it? The reasons were all strategic. The old partnership model just couldn't provide the massive, permanent capital they needed to fund their global expansion and compete with rivals who were already public. By 1999, going public wasn't just an option, it was an absolute necessity for them to evolve and dominate in the modern era.
And that decision absolutely shaped the Goldman Sachs that we all know today. So, what does this modern financial powerhouse actually do? How does it bring in the money?
The modern Goldman is basically broken down into three main parts. Global markets, which is their trading arm, makes up the biggest slice of the pie. But their classic investment banking business and the super fast-growing asset and wealth management division are also huge revenue drivers.
So, what keeps them at the top? Well, it's this killer combination of factors. They recruit the absolute best talent, they leverage a powerful global network, and they have a brand reputation that's been built up over decades. But critically, it's that risk culture we were just talking about, combined with a strategy that's always adapting, that really gives them their edge.
All right, so after looking at this whole 150-year journey, what are the key takeaways? What can we actually learn from this long and pretty complex legacy?
The first, and maybe the most important lesson, is adaptability. I mean, from dealing in commercial paper to investment banking to becoming a tech-forward financial giant, Goldman's success came from never letting its past define it. They were constantly evolving to meet whatever the market threw at them next.
Lesson number 2 is that managing your risk is just as crucial as chasing growth. Their survival in the 1930s and again in 2008 was no accident. It was the direct result of a deeply ingrained culture of understanding and, more importantly, respecting risk.
Third, diversification is your shield. By expanding from just pure investment banking into things like asset management and even consumer banking with Marcus, they've built multiple streams of revenue. That helps protect the whole firm when one part of the market is getting hammered.
Fourth is the power of leadership. From Marcus Goldman all the way to David Solomon today, there's been this clear line of strong, visionary leadership that gave them the stability they needed to navigate decades of volatility and crisis with a steady long-term vision.
Fifth, going global was non-negotiable. Goldman's strategic push into Europe and Asia in the late 20th century is really what transformed it from just another Wall Street firm into a truly global financial titan.
And finally, lesson number 6, you have to innovate. Today, innovation means technology. Goldman's focus on automation, on data analytics, and on digital platforms is exactly what's going to define its ability to compete and win in the years to come.
You know, this quote from our source material really says it all. The story of GS stock isn't just about one company making it big. It's a mirror that reflects the entire story of modern finance, its crises, its innovations, and its relentless push across the globe. Which leaves us with one final, and I think fascinating question. After adapting and reinventing itself for over 150 years to not just survive, but to thrive, what on earth does the next chapter for Goldman Sachs look like? What will be its next great reinvention?